Look, let's talk about Gaza. And I know what you're thinking. Oh great, another fun, lighthearted topic from the guy who looks like a perpetually startled owl. But stick with me, because to understand the absolute mess of today, you have to go back, way back. Before your favorite TV show was even a glimmer in a network executive's eye, Gaza was already a bustling metropolis. We're talking ancient times. Think less about smartphones and more about smashing things with bronze. For over 3,000 years, this tiny strip of land was a key trading post. It was the Amazon prime hub of the ancient world, connecting Egypt to the Levant. If you wanted spices, silks, frankincense, your camel caravan was probably stuck in traffic on the Via Maris, right through Gaza. This place wasn't just a rest stop for tired camels and merchants with questionable hygiene. It was a prize. A big, sandy, strategically important prize. Its location on the Mediterranean coast made it the gateway between Africa and Asia. Everyone wants to control that door. It was a cosmopolitan hub, a melting pot of cultures, ideas, and, inevitably, a whole lot of conflict. Alright, so after Alexander the Great had his fun, you might think Gaza would get a break. You would, of course, be wrong. So very wrong. After Alex kicked the bucket, his generals basically had a massive, empire-sized food fight. Gaza was caught in the middle, tossed between the Ptolemies and Egypt's Seleucids in Syria. It was like being the kid in a messy divorce, but with more elephant siege towers. Then, just when you thought the roster of rulers couldn't get any longer, in walked the Romans. And the Romans, as you know, were the undisputed champions of showing up, conquering everything, and building some very nice roads to make conquering the next place easier. Under them, Gaza became a prosperous, if thoroughly Romanized city. But empires like that avocado you bought last week have a shelf life. The Roman Empire split. Gaza became part of the Eastern Roman or Byzantine Empire. Christianity flourished. Then in the 7th century, a new force emerged from the Arabian Peninsula, the armies of Islam. Gaza was one of the first cities in the region to fall. It quickly became an important Islamic center. Then came the Crusaders. Yes, those guys. They took Gaza, built a fortress, and held it for a bit before the legendary Saladin kicked them out. They ruled for a few centuries until a new, even bigger empire showed up on the scene, the Ottomans. And then came World War I, the Great War, which was a truly terrible name for something so profoundly awful. The Ottoman Empire made the catastrophic mistake of siding with Germany. This brought the British Empire, with its pith helmets and unquenchable thirst for other people's land, right to Gaza's doorstep. There were not one, not two, but 3 massive battles fought over Gaza between the British and Ottoman forces. The city was devastated. Buildings were shelled into rubble, and the civilian population suffered immensely. After the war, the Ottoman Empire was carved up like a Thanksgiving turkey by the victorious European powers. And guess who got the peace that included Palestine, and by extension Gaza? That's right, the British. The British had also, through the Balfour Declaration, promised support for a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. They basically made conflicting promises to different groups, a move with all the foresight of a toddler juggling knives. Throughout the Mandate period, from the 1920s to the 1940s, tensions escalated. The region saw increasing Jewish immigration, driven by the Zionist movement and the horrifying rise of Nazism in Europe. This led to growing friction and violence between the Jewish and Arab communities. Gaza itself remained a predominantly Arab city, a center for Palestinian nationalism and resistance to both British rule and the Zionist project. It was a powder keg, and the British were holding the match. By 1947, the British had had enough, so they did what any overwhelmed adult does. They handed the problem to someone else. In this case, the newly formed United Nations. The day after the British packed their bags and left in May 1948, Israel declared its independence. Immediately, the surrounding Arab nations, Egypt, Jordan, Syria, and others, invaded, and the 1948 Arab-Israeli War began. The Egyptian army advanced through the desert and took control of a narrow strip of coastal land, the very same strip we now know as the Gaza Strip. The fighting was intense, and by the time an armistice was signed in 1949, the map had been completely redrawn. But the most profound change was demographic. The war created a massive refugee crisis. Around 750,000 Palestinians either fled or were expelled from their homes in the territory that became Israel. This event is known to Palestinians as the Nakba, or the catastrophe. A huge number of these refugees, somewhere around 200,000, ended up in the tiny Gaza Strip. In an instant, the population of this 25-mile-long piece of land more than tripled. They were housed in sprawling makeshift refugee camps, expecting to return to their homes in a matter of weeks or months. But those weeks turned into months, and the months turned into decades. Life under Egyptian military rule from 1949 to 1967 was not great, let's be clear. Gazans were not granted Egyptian citizenship. They were stateless. The Strip was effectively an open-air waiting room, packed with displaced and dispossessed people. The keys to houses that no longer existed were passed down from generation to generation. Gaza became a place defined by memory, loss, and a burning desire for a future that seemed to be slipping further away with each passing year. Then came 1967, the Six-Day War. In a lightning-fast military campaign, Israel defeated the armies of Egypt, Jordan, Syria. It captured the Sinai Peninsula and the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and the Golan Heights. Suddenly, Gaza was under Israeli military occupation. This was a seismic shift. For the next 4 decades, Israel would control every aspect of life in the Strip. This period of occupation saw the rise of organized Palestinian resistance. In 1987, the First Intifada erupted in a Gaza refugee camp, and out of this uprising, an offshoot of the Muslim Brotherhood emerged, Hamas. It offered a blend of armed resistance and social services. In 2005, Israel made a momentous decision. It unilaterally disengaged from Gaza. It pulled out all of its soldiers and dismantled all of its Jewish settlements inside the Strip. Many hoped this would be a step towards peace. It wasn't. The power vacuum was filled by internal Palestinian conflict, culminating in a short, brutal civil war in 2007. Hamas violently seized full control of the Strip, ousting the Fatah-led Palestinian Authority. And that's when everything got exponentially worse. In response to the Hamas takeover, Israel and Egypt imposed a crushing blockade on the Gaza Strip, severely restricting the movement of people and goods. But the blockade devastated Gaza's economy and trapped its 2 million residents. What followed has been a horrifyingly repetitive loop. Hamas or other militant groups fire rockets into Israel. Israel responds with overwhelming air power. 2008, 2014, 2021, and now in 2025. Each round of fighting kills thousands, mostly Palestinian civilians, and obliterates homes, hospitals, and infrastructure. Today, as we watch the current conflict unfold, we're not seeing something new. We're seeing the latest, most devastating chapter in a very, very long and tragic story.